What's up, guys? Artem MMA Analysis here. Going to be talking about UFC Fight Night Gane versus Tuivasa, also known as UFC Fight Night Paris. The UFC's finally going to Paris, and this intro might be a little bit longer than it usually is because I've got a couple of things to talk about. Last week we had no UFC. It felt like I was missing something in my weekend. I know we had the big ONE FC card, and of course I watched that card. I mean, if you didn't, what were you doing then? You got Demetrius Johnson on there. And there's also another pretty big event on in France, which is Aries FC. It's also on in Paris as well, with a couple of up-and-coming French names. I was potentially thinking about making a video on this, but I wasn't going to pretend like I knew who these guys were, because truthfully, I don't. But yeah, there's another event on in France if you're there, or if you want to watch some more French fights before you watch UFC Paris. And there's been a lot of cancellations on this card, man. I think there's 8 cancellations on the card. A lot of fights have been mixed and matched. You've got 7 people making their debuts. Some of those guys from Dana White's Contender Series. Some of them short-notice replacements even. But 7 debuts on the card, that's a lot of debuts, man. And I'm looking forward to it, though. But I would think, like, this is a good card. It is a good card. But you would think that being the first card in France, first card in Paris, they would have stacked it a little bit more. Like, I know the UFC doesn't have many French fighters, but you would kind of expect them to really stack the card a bit more. Like, I know Whittaker Vittori is a huge fight. I know Gane Tuivasa is a huge fight, but, you know, like, stack it. Like, get some really big fights on there, because it's your first fight in Paris, man. First fight night in Paris. So, yeah, like, that's not a rant, that's not a knock, because this is a great card, and I know there's been a lot of cancelled fights, but I just thought, you know, if you're going to go to Paris, you got to go to Paris. You know what I mean? But no, this is such a good card. I can't wait to talk about it. Let's just get into it right now. Almost a 2-minute intro. I apologize for the length. Let's just get into the fights. And in the first fight of the night, you've got Ailin Perez making her debut against a short notice replacement in Stephanie Egger. Stephanie Egger very recently, in fact only about 3 weeks ago at the time of recording, lost to Mayra Bueno Silva and didn't really take any damage at all. And she's stepping right back in there. I respect the effort, I respect the hustle, and it's also in France, and she's Swiss, so I guess it's somewhat of a close geographical area for her. Ailin Perez making her debut, where she was meant to debut against the French fighter Zerafan at 145, and I believe Zerafan was like 6-4 at the time. Ailin Perez was probably favoured to win that matchup because she is a grappler, and she does have pretty good wrestling, but in my opinion, Ailin Perez isn't as good of a grappler as Stephanie Egger is. Stephanie Egger's got so many judo accolades. I know she's got gold medals for Switzerland in her past, and she's just got medals on medals for judo anyway. And she's also got a pretty good jiu-jitsu game. I know that she did get submitted by Mayra Bueno Silva, but she did get the takedown on that fight, get Mayra Bueno Silva down, and then she ended up getting submitted in like a weird sort of situation where she didn't tap, or she did tap. It doesn't matter, she lost the fight. She played it so dumb after the fight, it was actually frustrating. But she's coming off a win over Jessica Rose Clark by armbar, which hasn't aged very good at all. She did ground and pound Shanna Young, which I guess has aged well, because Shanna Young's won since then, but it's still not that great of a win, in my opinion. Lost to Tracy Cortez. I don't really rate that win too highly either, to be fair, but that loss I meant. But Tracy Cortez up and coming, she's beaten a couple of good guys. Good girls, sorry. Ailin Perez, on the other hand, this girl is a grappler. She went semi-viral for like twerking and doing the splits after one of her wins. And the fight's at 145. I feel like maybe Ailin Perez is more of a natural bantamweight, which she is. All of her previous fights are at 135. But it's at 145 this fight because the fight was matched to be against Zerafan, who is a woman's featherweight. The division doesn't really exist, let's be realistic, but Ailin Perez, she just hasn't used her good grappling against fighters the level of Stephanie Egger. She hasn't used her grappling against fighters at UFC level. I think the line's wide, like way too wide. I would have lined it a little bit closer. But yeah, I don't think Ailin Perez is gonna be able to defeat Egger in the grappling transitions, and even on the feet, I don't think it's gonna spend much time on the feet at all. To be honest, I think Ailin Perez or Stephanie Egger are going to be shooting for takedowns pretty early on into the fight, and it's just going to end up like that. Like, her biggest test in her career, I know she lost by DQ, so she's technically undefeated. She has on her Instagram, like Sean O'Malley, but her biggest test is against a girl that was 8-4. Time for your big test. I'll give you a girl that's 8-4. Yeah, she hasn't fought the same level of Egger, to be honest. I think Perez has got a chance, but I think we didn't have to go with Egger. I'm going to go with Egger by submission as well. She's got that great judo game. She does have, I guess, a submission win over Jessica Rose Clark. Doesn't mean anything now, but it's still there. I'm just haven't seen enough to be wowed by Island Perez. Maybe Island Perez has a great underdog debut that really could happen, but I will be picking Stephanie Egger in this matchup here. In the second fight of the night, you've got a pretty close one, man. You've got Khalid Taha taking on Christian Canones. A tough fight to pick. I was on Christian Canones originally, and I'm still going to side with that pick. Most people on Tapology, to be quite interesting, are picking Canones, even though Tapology has him listed as the underdog. Not too sure what the up-to-date line is, but I wouldn't be surprised if Christian Canones is still an underdog. You know, Khalid Taha definitely the more proven fighter in the UFC, but he did get beaten up quite a bit against Hayoni Barcelos. Sergey Morozov was touching him up on the feet as well, and if Christian Canones can start well, I think that's his path to victory. I know that sounds like a bit silly. If he starts well, then he'll probably win the fight, but I think that's genuinely what could happen is Christian Canones, if he starts touching up Khalid Taha, who's a very tough fighter, but he is quite hittable. If Christian Canones starts hitting Taha and really getting in his flow, really getting into his rhythm, I can see him running away with the fight, but I feel like if Khalid Taha disrupts that, uses his wrestling, uses his grappling, because he is a pretty well-rounded fighter, he could potentially steal the win out of Christian Canones. But Canones, man, this guy's got a good size with him. He's 5'7" compared to Taha, who's a little bit shorter with a very slight reach advantage. He trains at an Intram gym, which is a pretty big gym down in Mexico there. And he's also got some really good wins on his record, some underrated wins on his record. You know, he did beat Vinicius de Oliveira, albeit by doctor stoppage, but that's still an incredible win in hindsight. He beat a guy that was 13-1 at the time, Donny Matos, and then he did defeat Long Zhao, who was a great Chinese fighter and a guy that was actually meant to fight on roads to UFC earlier this year, and unfortunately I think he got injured and he didn't fight Minwoo Kim. Minwoo Kim has moved on to the next stage of the competition, but still, Long Zhao's a pretty legitimate, experienced fighter, a young guy too, so that was a good win on Dana White's Contender Series in my opinion. But I think Canones, he's taken a lot of time off, so 9 months, you know, was on the Contender Series last year, and he's taken a lot of time off. He hasn't debuted for a long time. He's taken this fight on short notice, is worth noting as well. I'd say a couple of weeks notice, I believe he's taken the fight on, but I think he's definitely would have made improvements. He definitely would have started taking MMA a lot more seriously now that he's been signed to the UFC. So I'm going to be trusting a little bit that he's made improvements in his game, and I think he's just gonna be game. I think Christian Canones is going to be game in this matchup. He's the younger guy. Khalid Taha potentially fighting for his job. Potentially, you could say, oh well, he's only on a 2-fight losing streak, but. He failed a drug test, and I feel like that's not voice crack. That's not going to look the best in the UFC's books. He beat Bruno Silva by submission, which is cool, but he failed a USADA test and then got punished by fighting Hayoni Barcelos afterwards, and then he fought Sergey Morozov. And I think Christian Canones, if he starts well, I think that he can start taking away Khalid Taha's game. If that makes any sense, I think that Christian Canones, if he gets in his flow, if he gets in his striking, he can mix up the grappling as well. But I would say he's a pretty good boxer as well, and he's a pretty good striker. And I think that if he gets into his flow and his game, I think he can start touching up Khalid Taha, maybe mixing it up if he really needs to. But I think that he should be able to win this fight just by out-voluming Taha on the feet. Is kind of my pick. It's a hard fight to get a read on because Taha could mix it up with his wrestling and grappling, but I'll be siding with the underdog in Christian Canones. Let's see what we can get out of this one here. Now we move on to Benoit Saint Denis, I believe is how you say his name, taking on Gabriel Miranda. I've been calling him Benoit Saint Denis. I might still call him Benoit Saint Denis accidentally, but I'm from New Zealand, man. Like, how many French people do you think live in New Zealand? I've never met a French person in my life. I am very sorry. I've got no idea how they pronounce their words. But Benoit Saint Denis taking on Gabriel Miranda. Benoit Saint Denis was meant to fight someone else. I believe it was Christos Giagos. Christos Giagos cut his hand cleaning a porcelain toilet. Super random reason to pull out of the fight, but it happened. And Gabriel Miranda got signed to the UFC. He's making his debut here. And on short notice as well, somewhat now he's going to be fighting Benoit Saint Denis in a free trip to Paris. Plus he's getting paid to fight. I mean, I would have take that offer. And when I saw this guy get signed, initially I was like, man, this is a pretty good signing. Like, I know his record is very padded. It's sketchy, and I will be getting into that because that's a very big reason why I'm so high on Benoit Saint Denis here. But yeah, let's just talk about the fight. I really think that both guys are great grapplers. I think that the better striker is Benoit Saint Denis. Gabriel Miranda, if you watch this guy's fights, he doesn't strike. Like, he just doesn't. He just shoots for takedowns over and over. I haven't really seen much of this guy stand up at all. So I'm just gonna make the assumption that Benoit Saint Denis is the more polished striker. He's the guy that has made it into the UFC. And yeah, just with the mixing it up, I guess that both guys are grapplers. Gabriel Miranda, I think he's a good signing for the UFC because he's a finisher. He's got 16 wins, 15 of which by submission, one of which by KO. But the record is sketchy. In fact, like, not even just the record is sketchy. The competition that he's fought recently is sketchy. Like, he fought for Brave CF a couple of times, and he beat a couple of guys that aren't too bad. Like, he beat a guy that was 5-1, and then he beat a guy that was 8-7. But that's still a pretty experienced record, you know. And but he did lose to a guy that was 4-0. That's like 9-0 now, I think, in Bellator. Am I correct in saying that? Akhmed Magomedov. He is in Bellator, and he is 9-0. That was a good remembering for me. But no, these last two wins, I don't know how I feel about them. These might not have even happened. Like, these might not have genuinely might not have even happened. So he beat this guy called Jefferson Marai, who was 3-1. And he hadn't fought since 2014 before he fought Gabriel Miranda. And I think even then he fought upper weight class when he took on Miranda. And then Diego Sequeira, who was 5-5 at the time, he hadn't fought since 2015 before fighting Gabriel Miranda. Like, that's sketchy to me, man. Like, I don't know how I feel about that at all. And now he's fighting Benoit Saint Denis. I don't even know if those fights happened. I mean, there's a chance they didn't. I don't actually know. I mean, maybe there's footage of them. I didn't really bother looking because I just thought that there would be a waste of time watching. I'm gonna be brutally honest. I didn't watch that fight, but yeah, from what I've seen of Gabriel Miranda, this guy just doesn't want to strike. He wants to grapple, and that's what Benoit Saint Denis wants to do. This guy's a good grappler too. He submitted Nicolas Stolze. He submitted a couple of other guys before the UFC. Like, this guy's a good finisher, and he's fought way better competition. Benoit Saint Denis, man, these odds making me act up. I mean, he's at minus 200. If I had the money, I would actually put money on Benoit Saint Denis, but I was way too late. He's at minus 250 right now. I think potentially a parlay piece. I'm high on Benoit Saint Denis. If you guys know anyone picking Gabriel Miranda, let me know. I think there's too many red flags to pick that man, dude. I think Benoit Saint Denis, also, he's from France. He's literally from Paris, France. He's got the home crowd advantage. He's going to be the one getting cheered. Gabriel Miranda might be getting booed. I don't really know what the Paris crowd is going to be like, but so many people picking Saint Denis for good reason. Miranda's sketchy, man. Like, this record, I don't trust it at all. I think Saint Denis locks up a submission over Gabriel Miranda, the grappler himself, but or even gets a KO maybe. I don't know, but I think Saint Denis just wins in general. And if I make money on Dana White's Contender Series, I'll be putting something on Saint Denis. I'll be doing that. But yeah, there was a 4-minute breakdown for this fight that did not need 4 minutes, but I had to look into Gabriel Miranda's record with you guys, man. It is sketchy. I don't like it at all. And now you got Nasruddin Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley, and man, I'm 0-2 for Joaquin Buckley picks in his last two fights. I picked him to lose against Albert Duraev, and I picked him to lose against Abdulrazak Al Hassan. But I did pick him to win by KO over Antonio Arroyo, so I've got that one going for me, guys. But yeah, I don't think that I'm the best person to rely on when we're talking about a Joaquin Buckley fight. I'm a little bit scared for my pick, but I'm picking. Oh man, am I doing it? I'm doing it. I'm picking Imavov. Everyone's picking Joaquin Buckley. I don't know, man. I've never been too sold on Joaquin Buckley. If he proves me wrong, he proves me wrong. Good for him. I've got to go with Imavov. This guy, he's good, man. He's a good, well-rounded fighter. I think he's got good striking on the feet. But the problem is, to get the grappling, to get the wrestling, he's going to have to close in the distance. Joaquin Buckley. And where is Joaquin Buckley most dangerous? In close range, in my opinion. I know he's got that crazy spinning heel kick and all that. But I think that Joaquin Buckley's most dangerous when he's in close range, and this guy's got KO power for days, man. I mean, he made Albert Duraev look silly. I mean, I know Albert Duraev didn't have the greatest UFC debut, but Albert Duraev was a guy that I was pretty high on, and I wasn't confident in him taking Duraev versus Buckley, but Buckley made him look a little bit silly, and maybe Imavov could feel the same fate, but I like him evolve. I like his size, I like his grappling as well. I know he doesn't use it too much, but he does have it in him. And I know that he's a pretty good striker as well. The win over Emin Shabazian, in my opinion, doesn't really hold too much weight because unfortunately Shabazian's gone downhill big time. A good win over In Heinisch, I do think that's actually still a good win. Even now, the loss to Phil Hawes is a red flag. I mean, even going the distance with Jordan Williams is a red flag. Like, everyone finished Jordan Williams. Oh no, this is so bad. Okay, I'm gonna have to wrap this up very quickly. I'm picking Imavov. Most of Tapology is, but I'm seeing so many people on YouTube picking Buckley, and I think there's a very good reason for that. I think I'm gonna look silly. I think I'm gonna look really silly, but I'm gonna stick to my guns, man. My first pick when I saw this fight was Imavov. I'm gonna still side with that, man. I'm a little bit nervous, a little bit scared. I wouldn't take my advice. Go to someone that's a little bit more confident in the fight. Maybe someone with really good reason to pick Buckley or Imavov. I can't pick you up when Buckley fights. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. And now you got Freeze the Arm taking on Mikhail Figlak. Mikhail Figlak making his debut. I watched this guy fight live against Agi Sadari. I mean, I didn't actually go and watch it live. I was sitting in my bedroom, probably drinking some Fanta or something, and he took on Agi Sadari, and that was a big test in my opinion. Agi Sadari, pretty good fighter, 15-3 record at the time. Figlak 7-0 record at the time, and that was one of his big tests. But this guy's been tested his whole career. Like, he was like 3-0, taking on a guy that was more experienced and 4-3, and then he just jumped right in there with a guy that was 6-1, guy that was 7-2, guy that was 15-3, and he's really proven himself to be a pretty good prospect. And the UFC signed him, they picked him up, and then they picked up someone that they released earlier in the year, I think it was, or even maybe it was like earlier in the year for sure. Like, they released Freeze the Arm, which is weird because this guy didn't have a bad UFC run. Like, he lost his UFC debut to Don Madge, which in hindsight isn't too bad of a loss. And then Jamie Malaki beat him. I mean, Don Madge did get released from the UFC for different reasons, then lost in PFL, but still not a bad loss in my opinion. Don Madge is a great fighter. Jamie Malaki beat him, kind of mixing it up. He beat Luigi Vendramini in a pretty weird fight. I mean, it was a weird fight in general. It was a fight that a lot of people were torn on who was going to win. I think I picked Freeze the Arm to win that one. And it's probably one of the first videos I ever made on the channel, was talking about that fight. My dog just walked in the room, and he lost to Terence McKinney, which in hindsight is not a bad loss, and the UFC just got rid of him. I don't understand why they did that at all, and then they've re-signed him because he's from France, most likely to fight Figlak. I'm picking Figlak, but I think Freeze the Arm's a very live underdog here, and I have seen a couple of people on the YouTubes picking, yes, I did say on the YouTubes, picking Freeze the Arm in this matchup, man. He's a good fighter, is Freeze the Arm. He's a good, well-rounded fighter too, and he's got really good kickboxing. But I'm gonna go with Mikhail Figlak in this one here. I think that this guy should be able to outpoint Freeze the Arm. I mean, he's got it all. He's got good striking. He's got great grappling as well. If he needs to, he can go for the takedowns. I know Freeze the Arm is a good, well-rounded fighter himself, but I think Figlak is like the guy that they probably want to win. I know that doesn't make sense because it's in France, but I think they want Figlak to win this one. I think Freeze the Arm's a very live underdog. They should never have gotten rid of Ziam in the first place. I hope that Ziam signed a multiple fight contract so we see him again, but I just don't think he's going to get the win today over Mikhail Figlak. Now, we're going to be talking about Dustin Stoltzfus taking on Abusapai and Magomedov, and my good friend Angelo from We Want Picks, in his quick picks video, he was picking Dustin Stoltzfus, which is, I think, a pretty ballsy underdog play, but I've got to go with Abusapai and Magomedov. But this guy has annoyed me. I'm a little bit upset with this guy, Abusapai, and man, this guy, I mean, he won his last fight in 2020, end of 2020, and then he just kind of didn't fight. Like, I know he was matched up against a lot of guys that pulled out. Like, most of these fights are not his fault that he pulled out, that they didn't happen, I mean, sorry. But, Magomedov, man, like, this guy really spent his prime of his career between the age of 30 and 32 not fighting. I mean, come on, Abus, man, you can do better than that. Like, it's a little bit of a shame. I feel like if he made his debut about a year and a half ago or a year and a bit ago, he could have made a run by now. He really could have done something at middleweight because, let's be honest, let's be open and honest, the middleweight division isn't at its strongest point right now. Like, there's definitely only a few good wins can get you in the top 15, unless your name is Jared Mearshart, poor guy, on a good win streak right now, and he's not ranked. But, yeah, I mean, I'm going to be picking Abusapai and Magomedov. This guy's a finisher. This guy's got, like, 20 finishes in his career. He's also beaten pretty good competition. I mean, it's dicey. It's up and down. Like, he beat a guy that was debuting, and then he beat a guy that was 12-0. But for the most part, he's been fighting guys around his level, or at least guys that he should be fighting at the time. I mean, earlier on to his career, it was a little bit sketchy, but even then, he took on a guy that was 9-2 when he was 7-0. So, yeah, it's what it is. But yeah, 13 wins by KO, 6 wins by submission, so 19 finishes. He's powerful guy on the feet, and I think that Stoltzfus is definitely more of the grappler. He's got a good jiu-jitsu base. I think he's got a brown belt in BJJ, but he does kind of look to use it in his fights. You know, he did beat Dwight Grant in a weird fight. Like, I think he outpointed Grant, but Grant was moving up a weight class in that fight from 170, and even then he wasn't having a good 170 run, and then before that he lost to Gerald Meerschaert, as I was talking about him before. Rodolfo Vieira lost. I don't mind that loss, that is what it is, but he lost to Kyle Dalkaus, which in hindsight hasn't looked that great. Like, I know Kyle Dalkaus had the weird fight with Kevin Holland, but Dalkaus ain't looking amazing right now. I like Abusapai and Magomedov to win this one. I guess the win over Joe Pyfer now was actually aged really well, and maybe we see the rematch at some point, but I'm big over Abusapai and Magomedov. This guy's a good fighter. This guy's gonna make something happen at middleweight, even if he spent a year and a half of his prime on the sideline, man. Like, oh, I don't know, there must have been some behind the scenes stuff, but it's still a little bit like, what if he made his UFC debut a year and a half ago? You know, he could have made something, he could have done a run by now, but it is what it is. I think Abusapai finishes him on the feet by KO. I genuinely believe that too. So yeah, give me Magomedov to win inside the distance. And now you've got Charles Jourdain taking on Nathaniel Wood, and what a step up in competition this is for Nathaniel Wood. You know, he looked great. He dominated Charles Rosa. He did in London 3 weeks ago, which is a good win. It really is. But that's Charles Rosa. You know, that's a guy that wasn't having the greatest UFC run at the time, and now he's taking on Charles Jourdain, who, albeit 3-2 in his last 5 fights, but this guy is making a name for himself. He had the crazy fight against Andre Ewell, a fight that a lot of people rate a little bit too highly, in my opinion. Andre Ewell was moving up a weight class, and even then he wasn't looking great at 135 as it is, but then he beat Lando Vannata, hurt Lando Vannata, finished him with a submission. Great win. I rate that win quite highly. I did pick Charles Jourdain to win that one. I think he was like a very slight favourite in that one. And then I picked Shane Burgos to defeat Charles Jourdain, thinking that was too much of a step up in competition for Jourdain. And it wasn't really. Like, Shane Burgos and Charles Jourdain had a really close fight. It was pretty entertaining. There's a big argument that Jourdain won the fight. Like, he landed more than 100 strikes, total strikes, I believe, in the whole fight. But he spent like 6 minutes off the fight getting controlled by Burgos. I mean, at the time watching, I thought that Burgos won it. But a lot of people believe Jourdain won that fight, and that would be like a borderline. I think even Burgos was ranked at the time, right? Like, it'll be like a top 15 ranking for Jourdain. And Nathaniel Wood, man, he calls himself the prospect. The guy's almost 30 years old. You're a little bit too old to be calling yourself that, man. But yeah, he took a decent amount of time off after losing to Casey Kenny, and moved up a weight class against Charles Rosa. Now, as I was watching this fight, I was like, man, Nathaniel Wood's looking amazing, but this guy needs to go down to 135. He needs to go back to his more natural weight class. He's not doing that. He's really committing to 145, and I don't like that move. In my opinion, I really do like Charles Jourdain to get the win. I think that Charles Jourdain's going to get a knockout as well. I know Nathaniel Wood could mix it up with his grappling, and that really could be a good path to victory to wrestle with Charles Jourdain. But even then, Jourdain does have some great submissions. You know, he did submit Lando Vannata with a guillotine choke. He submitted, I think his name is Alex Morgan, with a guillotine choke earlier on into his career, and Morgan's fighting on Dana White's Contender Series next Tuesday, which is going to be an incredible card. Where is it? Alex Morgan, there we go. The fight almost before he made it into the UFC. And then he made it into the UFC, lost to Des Green, and from there he knocked out Doo Ho Choi. I remember actually watching all of these fights when I was researching the Shane Burgos fight. But yeah, no, I'm really high on Jourdain in this matchup. I really think that he's going to find the KO over Nathaniel Wood, who I do think is still undersized for 145. I think this guy really needs to stick to 135 and make a run there, but I like Jourdain to beat Nathaniel Wood. Massive step up in competition for Wood after a little bit of a layoff. It's kind of a weird fight, really, but I think that Jourdain should get the one. Get the fight won. Let's just move on. And now you've got William Gomez taking on Jano Erens, making their debuts on the main card of a pretty important fight night. The first fight night in Paris, France, And I'm picking William Gomez to win. This guy is the local, man. He's from Paris. He's fighting out of Paris. He's probably the guy the UFC wants to win as well. He's on a crazy win streak right now over really good competition. And Gane Aaron's ain't no joke, man. This guy, I mean, both guys are taking the fight on short notice. Both guys were signed recently, and then the fight was made recently as well. I think they were just signed to fight each other on this card to get things going after so many fights fell out. But moving on, I think William Gomez wins the matchup. I think he's almost just a little bit better everywhere. I think that weird Gane Aaron's has an advantage. Is in close distance, in the clinch as well. Gane Aaron's, he's very good at closing the distance. That's kind of his style, and he's pretty good in the clinch as well. And even if he needs to, he can look to grapple as well. But so can Gomez. Gomez is on a good win streak. Ground and pound TKO of a guy that was 11-5 at the time, 6-1, 7-3, 9-1, and I mean a guy with a losing record, but that was earlier on. And Gane Aaron's as well. I've seen some people, like some weird comments saying that Gane Aaron's hasn't been fighting the greatest competition at all, but that's just not true. He just beat a guy that was 7-2. He lost a guy to a guy that was 9-3. He beat a guy, Max Koga, I believe, a very well seasoned fighter over in Europe, 23-7. Drew with a guy that was 6-0. Like, this guy is fighting good competition. I don't really know where that comment come from, but I read it somewhere. I think it was on Twitter. So I probably should have just ignored it. But I just remember reading that. I was like, man, that's just a weird take to have. I mean, both guys have fought good competition. Both guys, in my opinion, are UFC ready. But I think that Gomez is the guy they want to win. I think Gomez is the guy that is going to win. I think he's going to probably kickbox at range with Aaron's and then defend whatever grappling exchanges that Aaron tries to bring. And even then, Gomez probably could grapple with Aaron. So he's a good fighter. He's a really good, well-rounded fighter. But I think that Gomez is going to get the win. Some people picking KO. I think it goes the distance. I think that Gomez wins by decision. But man, 7% picking Aaron's. That is crazy. This is actually a pretty competitive fight. But I do think that Gomez, he's the better striker at range. His grappling's pretty good. He can at least grapple competitively with Gane Aaron's. I mean, yeah, I guess it's a tough fight to predict because both guys haven't made the UFC debuts yet. But I don't know, man. I do a lot of research on Dana White's Contender Series, so I was able to find tape, especially on Gomez, who has been fighting a lot on fight cards that are on UFC Fight Pass. But yeah, before I dig a massive hole and waste a lot of time, let's just move on to the next fight. And now you got Nasrat Haqparast taking on John Makdessi, and open and honest, there's two blueprints that have been written to defeat Nasrat Haqparast. The first one was from Dan Hooker by using your grappling, mixing it up with the strike, and using your wrestling. And then the second one was Bobby Green fight at range and just kind of outpoints and just outland at range on the feet. And I don't think that John Makdessi honestly is the guy to pull off that sort of game plan right now. I mean, at 37 years old, he hasn't fought for about a year and a half with a very close split decision win over Ignacio Bahamondes, which has aged very well, to be fair. He lost to the GOAT, Francisco, well, not the GOAT, Artem Lobov is the GOAT, but GOAT Naldo, as a lot of people like to call him, and just a couple of other wins just earlier on. But I think that Nasrat Haqparast should win this one. He's really primarily a boxer, and he fights at somewhat close range as well, as despite having the reach advantage and size advantage in this one as well, he probably will fight in somewhat close range on the feet. That's kind of what Nasrat is. He's a brawler. He likes to strike. That's kind of all he really does. Like, we've seen him exposed in the grappling by Dan Hooker, who I guess is a pretty high level fighter. And we've also seen him outpointed or just beaten up on the feet against Bobby Green. I think this is a good comeback fight for Nasrat. I think that Nasrat was meant to fight John Makdessi a little bit earlier on in his career. I think straight after Dan Hooker, he wanted to fight Makdessi, or maybe it was straight before he fought Dan Hooker, he wanted to fight Makdessi. But I do have a lot of respect for Nasrat taking that fight against Dan Hooker on short notice as well, and he had a lot of things going on with his life at the time. I'm picking Nasrat Haqparast to win. We might even see a finish here because John Makdessi hasn't fought for a year and a half. He's a little bit smaller than Nasrat, and he's like almost 37. He's 37 years old right now. Nasrat's the hungry guy. He's 27 years old. I think that Nasrat gets it done. In fact, I'm gonna pick it. When was the last time Nasrat got a KO? Because I don't think it was recently. It wasn't recently at all. But I'm picking Nasrat KO. Let's go. War Nasrat it is, I guess. Yeah, War Nasrat. Let's go. I'm gonna be picking him by KO. And now we move up. We've got Alessio Di Chirico versus Roman Kopylov. And apologies, voice crack again. So many voice cracks in the video, and a very big lack of underdogs in the video. But I'm gonna pick one, man. I think he's the underdog right now. I mean, he is on Tapology, I guess, if that even counts, minus 105. I'm picking Roman Kopylov. I think in my early predictions video, I said like Roman Kopylov is a guy that I've been watching that I want to fade. That was incorrect, man. I think I got him confused with someone else that I can't even remember who it was. But I lost to Albert Duraev where he made it very competitive, and then I lost to Kyle Roberson where he kind of tried to strike with him and then got beaten at Kyle Roberson's own game, to be fair. But prior to that, though, he did build up his record against pretty good guys. He hasn't really been the guy I think a lot of people maybe expected him to be. He's on a 2-fight losing streak right now. Alessio Di Chirico ain't on the brightest streak at all himself, though. He's 1-4 with his one win by head kick KO of Joaquin Buckley. How ironic was that, guys? And then he got head kicked KO. I forgot about that. And then he got head kicked KO by Abdulrazak Al Hassan. I like Roman Kopylov in this one. I think that Di Chirico is a really good fighter. I picked him to beat Al Hassan, I believe. Yes, I did. I definitely picked him to beat Al Hassan. But I think that Roman Kopylov gets it done. No confidence at all. Like, yeah, just no confidence whatsoever here. I remember he got beaten up pretty badly by Kevin Holland back in the day, and then he lost to Zach Cummings. You just don't do that. Yeah, I know this is the worst breakdown probably on my channel ever, but I like that way that Roman Kopylov mixed it up. He does have good striking, he does have good grappling as well. He tested Albert Duraev a lot in his debut, although he did get beaten up a little bit there. I'm going to be going with Kopylov. It's 50-50 fight on Tapology. I'm digging myself a massive hole here. I'm exposing myself for potentially completely forgetting that this fight actually exists and not really researching it. Let's move on. I forgot this fight was happening. It's really embarrassing. Let's move on. And now we move on. You got Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori in your co-main event. This is a massive fight at 185. The top 3 fighters, I think Robert Whittaker's ranked number 1. Marvin Vettori's ranked number 3. And I think Alex Pereira's ranked number 2. I think that's how the ranking are working right now. Or maybe Robert Whittaker's ranked number 1, Vettori's ranked number 2. But anyway, no matter how it goes, I think Robert Whittaker wins, and I think he does it very convincingly. I've seen a few people talking on the Twitter, albeit not. I just need to ignore Twitter. I don't know why I downloaded it in the first place. I probably only downloaded it a month ago, and ever since then, nothing's really happened. To be fair, but MMA Twitter, like there's just some interesting takes on that site. There's just some weird news on Twitter. Like, I don't know why I downloaded it. I don't even know how to use the app anyway. But yeah, picking Robert Whittaker to win. I think that he's the most skilled fighter in the middleweight division. He's the most skilled mixed martial artist, in my opinion. Well-rounded. He's very well-rounded, and he's just skilled. Like, that's just it. He's just very skilled, and I just don't think that Marvin Vettori is that skilled. Like, his striking, I know he looks pretty good against Paulo Costa, but he really just toughed that fight out. And even then, there's that really sketchy point deduction as well. Where, I mean, we saw him take a head kick to the back of the ear, which would knock out any man, which would knock me out unconscious probably for about 15 minutes. And he just ate it. You know, this guy's not going to get finished by Robert Whittaker. Let's be honest. Robert Whittaker hasn't finished a guy in a long time. And Marvin Vettori is a guy that just doesn't really get finished. And I just don't see Marvin Vettori getting finished in this matchup at all. I think Robert Whittaker wins 30-27. He's the more skilled fighter. He's the much better striker in this matchup. Marvin Vettori is going to be shooting for takedowns. I think Robert Whittaker is going to be able to mix up his wrestling as well. I don't think he's really going to be shooting for takedowns on Marvin Vettori, but I don't think that would be too bad of a game plan, you know. When you see a lot of these guys that used to be on top on their back, they don't really know what to do. Like, I know that Marvin Vettori's got a good grappling base as well, and I mean, he could become a very highly ranked fighter because of it, but I just don't think that Marvin Vettori's a very skilled fighter. You know, it's just truthfully what it is. I think he's got a lot of time to develop. He's not even 29 years old. But this isn't a good matchup. This is not a good matchup for Vettori at all. I mean, even then, Robert Whittaker has really been starting to mix up his takedowns. Like, I think earlier on in his career, I mean, prior to fighting Israel Adesanya, sorry, here's a stat for you guys. He's prior to fighting Izzy, this guy did not shoot takedowns. Really ever. He fought the fight on the feet, and this guy fought in the UFC for a long time, and he just wasn't taking the fight to the ground even at 170, at 185 as well. Went on a legendary run, low-key, and then ran into Izzy and got knocked out unconscious pretty badly, let's be fair. But then after that, he put on a clinic against Darren Till after taking a year off. He really mixed up the grappling, and the striking, against Gastelum. Schooled Gastelum. No one schools Gastelum like Whittaker did. And I just think that Whitaker beats Vettori. I agree with the line. I would line him very wide. I don't. In fact, I don't really. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Open and honest. I don't rate Marvin Vettori very highly whatsoever. I really don't. I mean, he got a title shot off beating short notice Kevin Holland, Jack Hermanson, Carl Roberson. I'm sorry, but that's probably like the weakest three fight run to a title shot you could get. He only got the title shot because he had fought Izzy in a close fight before. And Adesanya schooled him. And then, even then, I completely forgot about the delusion this guy has. He thought that he won the fight. Like, Marvin Vettori is delusional. Yeah, no, he's funny, but he's getting taken to school. He's getting taken to school by Robert Whitaker, and yeah, he's getting shown what's up by the elite of 185, the most skilled fighter in 185. Let's be honest, in Whitaker. So yeah, picking Whitaker with a decent amount of confidence in this matchup. And now we move up. We've got Cyril Gane taking on Tai Tuivasa, and I think this is a pretty competitive matchup. I would say, open and honestly though, it's low key like a nightmare matchup for Tai Tuivasa. I really would have liked Tai Tuivasa's odds at defeating even someone like Stipe Miocic instead of Cyril Gane. Like, I just think that, I mean, even then, I feel like maybe Tai Tuivasa would potentially have a pretty competitive fight with Ngannou, however long that lasted. But Cyril Gane, this guy is, I think even this, I know this guy's like a minus 600 favorite. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like this guy, even like his whole skill set is still, I think since the loss to Ngannou, is still being like underrated in a way. Like, I'm not saying the line should be wider. I think the line should be a lot closer than it is. Let's be honest. Tuivasa might be one of the more live plus 400 underdogs you're ever gonna get. But I feel like Cyril Gane's skill set's underrated. I'm on an island, man. I really am here. I think he beat Ngannou. I think he beat Ngannou. I can't really remember the rounds exactly how it is, but he won the fifth round against Ngannou, and that was the round that just dictated. It was 2-2 going into the fifth. Gane won the fifth round. Gane won the fifth round. He defeated Ngannou, but it is what it is, man. I think Gane just beats Tai Tuivasa. I mean, Tai Tuivasa, a very underrated clinch game. If he's going to win, he's going to close the distance, use his clinch, burn up a bit of control time. Maybe not the most exciting thing, but it's Tai Tuivasa. He can get away with it, man. And he's got a massive reach disadvantage as well. So if he wants to win, I feel like he's got to use the clinch, and then when he breaks out of the clinch, try and catch Cyril Gane with something, or just kind of work the clinch like he does do, like he did against Derek Lewis. That was a lot of clinch, and that fight. He beat up Augusto Sakai, but Augusto Sakai isn't he's kind of not very good at taking a shot. Defeated Greg Hardy, got hurt by Greg Hardy, not gonna lie, and then he just knocked him out stiff. Knocked out Harry Hunsucker. That poor guy has been beaten up by probably every top light heavyweight Australian they can find him, and knocked out Stephen Struve in a big comeback. But not a big comeback, but it was a big comeback for his career because he was like 3-fight losing streak, I think, at the time. But yeah, man, the Derek Lewis win is pretty good. Like, he took a lot of bombs in that fight, but I think Cyril Gane does to Tai Tuivasa what he did against Derek Lewis. He keeps Tai Tuivasa at range, outpoints Tuivasa on the feet. Tuivasa's not really able to know what to do because Cyril Gane is so skilled and so well moved. He's got great footwork for heavyweight. This guy moves like a guy in a much smaller weight class. Sorry. He's a great fighter. This guy is a nightmare matchup for Tai Tuivasa. I'm not speaking English. I'm speaking this and speaking that in this breakdown. It's going everywhere. But the point is, I think that Cyril Gane just defeats Tai Tuivasa. I think even on the feet, Tai Tuivasa is going to look to land his bombs. But Cyril Gane, with his kickboxing background, I think he's going to see it all coming. I think he's going to get out of the way. He's going to move out of the way and just going to kind of stick the jab and use some push kicks. He does have a lot of kicks for a heavyweight as well. And kind of keep Tuivasa at the end of his shots, like he did to Derek Lewis. I mean, we've seen Tai Tuivasa chins before. It's not like Tuivasa's got like the most iron granite chin in the world. Like, yes, this guy took some bombs from Derek Lewis, and I'm not gonna deny that. But we've seen him KO'd before. We've seen him lose to JDS. JDS finished him off, and we've seen him hurt by Greg Hardy. A little bit of a red flag in a way, but yeah, I think that Tai Tuivasa, man, he's such a live plus 400 underdog. He's so live. But Cyril Gane, it's a nightmare matchup for Tuivasa. I'm going to be going with Gane. If Tuivasa wins, I will be a very happy man. But I think that you're going to have to go with Gane at minus 600. Is it worth playing? It's a heavyweight fight, so even then, over-unders aren't a good play in my opinion. I think that you just leave this fight as it is and just enjoy the show. Unless you wanted to throw down on the massive underdog in Tuivasa, but it's a good fight, man. It really is. I mean, rooting for Ty, really am. I mean, this guy's funny. This guy's got a great attitude. But I think that Gane just beats him. I think he might even just beat him by decision, and maybe he finishes him off in like the fourth or the fifth round. I can't see Tai Tuivasa having 5 round gas tank, especially with the output that or with the power that he throws in the first couple of rounds. I don't see Ty wanting to go 5 rounds. I think Cyril Gane in the fourth and the fifth round, he's going to have a punching bag potentially in front of him if it goes that far. And I think he gets to finish it towards the end of the fight. So give me Cyril Gane to win that fight. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you're here from the individual video, thank you very much for watching the Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa individual video. If you're here from the full card video, thank you for making it so far. You've done a good job making it this far with me, especially in the state that I'm in right now, because it's not a good time of the year for me, man. Something terrible happened to me this time last year. Well, not really to me directly, but yeah, I'm just going through a little bit of a tough time, you know. Like I'm really tired. I'm exhausted. It's my last week of this job that I've hated for so long, and we're getting a new job starting next week. Let's go! I'm so hyped for that. But yeah, let's go, man. It's tough time for little Artem here, man. He's paying the bills. He's paying the bills, but he's getting there. He's getting there. So yeah, let's go, boys. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna really look forward to this fight night, man. Let's go. UFC in Paris. Voice crack. Oh my god, so many. I do not. My voice does not crack. My voice does not break ever, and it's broken like 3 or 4 times in this video. I think it's time for me to leave. I'll see you later. If you've made it this far, thank you guys so much for doing so. And I'll see you in the next one, man. Really appreciate all of the support that I've been getting on my channel. And I'll see you in the next one.